They laughed when they thought they had you cornered. Now they choke on their own surprise because the tables flipped before they even knew a new game had started. Imagine this for a moment. Chosen one, you've walked into a room where every single person already wrote your story for you. They boxed you in, labeled you, filed you away like an old piece of paper no one would ever need again. And then, without warning, you set that paper on fire. Their predictions turned to ash. Their confidence collapsed. And suddenly the people who thought they knew you best are scrambling to rewrite the script of your life. Here's the fact: studies show the human brain clings to its assumptions like a shield against chaos. When those assumptions are shattered, it creates mental warfare, confusion, denial, and envy. Thank you, chosen one. Don't forget to pay this message back by simply pressing the like and subscribe to help spread this message to more souls. It's the responsibility of all of us to keep this light moving through the universe, because the universe chose you for a reason. Invite viewers to post their thoughts in the comments. Tell the world how you flipped the script in your own life. Your story might be the spark that gives another chosen one courage. Thank you, chosen one, for being part of this mission. Your silence was not emptiness. It was a vault where blueprints matured. While they checked the doorway for your footsteps, you were already beneath the floorboards, laying cables they could not cut. Every quiet day shaped an edge. Every unseen choice tightened the coil. When you finally moved, it wasn't applause that followed. It was the sound of old narratives cracking like glass under heat. They mistook stillness for surrender. They misread patience as fear. Yet you were drafting a wider map, one that did not even require their roads. Think of a lighthouse operating in fog. The beam does not shout, yet ships alter course. That was you. Without announcements, you changed the coastline of their certainty. Now they search for your trail and find none, because you left a signature that cannot be traced, only felt. You did not win by arguing with their rules. You made their rulebook irrelevant. They memorized patterns. You redrew the grid. They guarded gates. You outgrew their walls. The moment you stopped seeking entry, the locks rusted in their hands. That realization bites deeper than defeat, because it forces them to face a truth they fear. Authority collapses when consent is withdrawn. Look at them now, eyes darting, stories shifting, confidence turned brittle in the light of your outcome. They replay old conversations, hunting for hints that never existed. They whisper questions behind closed doors, but the answer keeps echoing back the same way: you were silent because you were sovereign. The scoreboard they worship does not measure this kind of victory. It measures noise, not inevitability. Carry this with you. Silence is not a pause. It is a forge. What you tempered there will not bend under their opinions. And this is only the opening move. The next chapter will not negotiate with their pride. It will burn what remains of the illusion and leave them staring at a truth they cannot unsee. They believed you could be contained by lines and whistles, a maze painted on the ground to keep you running in circles while they watched from safe seats. Every clause they wrote, every policy, protocol, and petty boundary existed to convince you that elevation must arrive with their stamp. But the day you stopped seeking stamps, the ink dried, and their rubber seals cracked like old bones. You didn't bend their rules. You burned the book that pretended to bind you. Picture the track they chalked in bright confidence. Lanes, banners, timing guns, a podium polished for someone wearing their colors. Spectators roared at rehearsed moments, as if applause could crown truth. You walked to the edge, studied the pattern, and felt how small it was. Then, without speeding up or slowing down, you stepped off the oval and onto terrain no referee could patrol. Your quiet traveled with you like a cloak, not an absence, but a presence that turned their megaphones to dust. What looked like stillness was strategy. What felt like delay was design. Here is what gnaws at them after midnight. People can recover from losing. They rarely recover from learning the contest never mattered. The scoreboard they worshipped was a mirror trapping their own eyes. Numbers flashed, but meaning didn't. They mistook measurement for mastery and ceremony for crown. When you erased the finish line, you erased their certainty that timekeepers decide triumph. The revelation punched holes through their confidence. What else have we obeyed that was never real? They tried to whistle you back, arms flailing, faces red with borrowed power. Yet authority requires consent, and you revoked it. Think of a referee stranded on an empty field, clutching a rule book while the game migrates to the mountains. His pages flutter, but the wind does not read. That is how their jurisdiction felt when you left the frame. It wasn't rebellion for the sake of noise. It was clarity, choosing a wider sky. You did not need to defeat them at their game because the game collapses without your participation. The gates they guarded rusted when the path detoured around their walls. Their podium, once a pedestal, became a stage prop exposed under plain light. And plain light is cruel to costumes, titles wrinkled, medals dulled. The crowd remembered results, not rituals. Your outcomes stood there, unbothered, immune to their commentary, proof that mastery answers to reality, not to committee. Understand the deeper current. Systems train people to love boundaries because boundaries are predictable. Prediction sedates fear. Your refusal reintroduced weather. Storm fronts do not ask for permits. You were the barometric drop. Their umbrellas snapped. They search now for a clause, a precedent, any salvageable paragraph to regain control. But ashes don't bind. Ashes drift. Carry this forward as law written in flame. You owe no obedience to blueprints designed to keep you measurable. If a map cannot hold the mountain, the map is wrong. If a ritual cannot hold the truth, the ritual is theater. You chose mountain over map, truth over theater, and quiet over spectacle until the moment of impact. Now the room smells of smoke, and even the loyalists feel the floor tilt beneath their practiced cheers. Let them rewrite, rebrand, and rename. They will rename for year. It will not matter. The crowd has seen through the cardboard, and what comes next will not merely end the show. It will reveal the hands behind the curtain and the strings they hoped you'd never see. They lived inside a theater dressed as reality. Velvet curtains hiding plywood walls. Rehearsed lines pretending to be law. They cast themselves as heroes, painted your roles small, and depended on dim lights to blur the edges. You were expected to stand where they placed you, nod when cued, bow when told. Instead, you pulled the lighting rig, and the room saw dust float where stars were supposed to burn. The silence you honed earlier did the work again. It arrived like a janitor at closing time, flipped the breakers, and left pretenders blinking in honest light. Consider the moment the curtain fell. Gasps were not for drama, they were for exposure. The trick failed because the secret lost its shelter. Mirrors that once bent perception now reflected faces flushing with embarrassment. The audience wasn't angry at truth. The audience was angry at believing a lie for so long. That heat does not aim at you. It turns inward first, then outward toward the directors who fed the illusion. This is why their eyes wobble and their voices crack. Deception rots quickest in bright air. Here is a lesson they cannot digest: control that depends on darkness is not control. If a crown dissolves under rain, it was paper all along. Your stance proved it. You did not shout, threaten, or plead. You kept the calm of someone who knows that reality never needs a drumline. The set collapsed because it was light. The script failed because it was thin. And the applause stopped because hands refused to clap for cardboard after touching stone. Think of the stage hands scrambling now. They tug at ropes, push flats, and spray perfume over smoke. None of it rebuilds credibility. The crowd has counted the trap doors. Children point at the pulleys. Whispered excuses ricochet without landing because the spectacle cannot be unseen. Vision spreads faster than rumor once the room agrees to look. Where once they choreographed all, they now negotiate exits. Your task is simpler and heavier: stand still while truth does its work. Standing still is not passivity, it is alignment with something weightier than performance. Let the spotlight wander. Let the hosts rebrand failure as intermission. The audience knows an ending when it feels won. You can hear it in the hush between breaths, that collective verdict sliding across the floor like a tide enough. Remember the through line from before? Silence as weapon, Scoreboard made irrelevant. Paper crowns in rain. Each thread meets here, woven into a banner that will not smolder. You are not fighting actors, you are ending a season. When the house lights returned, authority that leaned on scenery toppled into its own props. The mind clings to assumptions. Yes, but once fingers slip, they reach for something solid or they fall. Many will fall. Some will reach. Make space for those who choose stone. Do not waste energy arguing with fog. Step through it. Leave the projectors whirring behind you until they cough out heat and nothing more. You are not obligated to prove that a trapdoor is a hole. Walking past it proves enough. The blueprint you carry outlives any marquee, and when tomorrow's sun pours across the empty seats, the building will tell the story. Without your voice, the show ended because truth refused to perform. They needed a comfortable story to protect their pride. So they called your rise luck. That word was their shield, a thin plate held between fear and responsibility. If fortune carried you, then they were never required to face their own hesitation. If chance crowned you, then discipline, grit, and holy timing could be ignored. But you know what luck cannot do? It cannot bleed. It cannot persist when doors jam. And it cannot carry silence like armor while you build where no one looks. Picture the sidelines where critics whisper about shoes and shortcuts. You remove the shoes, cross gravel, climb the hill, and arrive anyway. Excuses scatter like birds. The truth stands, consistency wears down stone that talent only decorates. When the scoreboard they worship flickers, your outcome does not. The measure is not numbers flashing on a wall. The measure is change carved into reality. That is why their chests tighten when your name is spoken. The room remembers results, not rumors. Here's the psychology they avoid naming. People reach for external causes to keep the mirror from speaking. Blame feels safer than bravery. They would rather believe a coin flipped in your favor than admit you showed up on days when courage felt allergic to air. Yet your silence contradicts their narrative. You did not announce every attempt. You reappeared after failure with the same steady hands. Silence, again, became a weapon shielding blueprints that noise would have sabotaged. Think of the forge they never visited. Heat bends metal, but only the metal that refuses to flee becomes a blade. Every rejection you survived was temperature. Every unseen hour, a hammer. The bright edge they call luck carries fingerprints of smoke and pressure. Luck leaves no scars. Your story is mapped in them. Consider the farmer who plants when clouds argue. He cannot purchase harvest by wishing. He must partner with weather, soil, and faithful routine. That was your posture. You learned which season to speak and which season to let roots drink beneath the surface. When the rain finally arrived, it met a field already prepared. To outsiders, it looked sudden. To the ground, it was inevitable. They are restless now, bargaining with language. They rebrand your labor as fortune to quiet the ache of unused potential. But paper crowns dissolve in rain, and their label dissolves with them. The crowd has seen through the theater. Gatekeepers without gates cannot bless or curse outcomes they never built. When you stop bowing, their authority evaporated with the mist. Carry this clarity: grace is not luck. It is alignment with a path that demands participation. Discipline is not luck. It is loyalty to the unseen when applause is absent. Vision is not luck. It is seeing a city where others see scaffolds and then lifting the first beam. When you moved, you did not appeal to their podiums. You toppled the podium and kept walking. So when they say, "You were lucky," hear the translation. You did what we postponed. Let that sentence harden your resolve without hardening your heart. Some will awaken under this mirror and start. Others will cling to the shield until it splinters. Either way, keep your pace. The mountain does not consult the weather before it rises, and neither do you. Luck is the story cowards tell themselves at dusk. Dawn belongs to the ones who labored in the dark and stepped forward when the light arrived. They parade fatigue like a trophy, and you've seen it for years. They recite hours like scripture, stack calendar blocks like bricks, and mistake the weight of schedules for the weight of results. But grind without fruit is just gravel in a drum, loud, pointless, exhausting. You, by contrast, stopped worshiping motion and chose creation. You planted where they only shoveled. You built what their busyness could never birth. And one focused act from you outgrew a decade of their circular effort. Imagine a man in a yard, digging the same hole every day, showing fresh blisters like metals. He talks about dirt as if dirt were destiny. You arrive with a single seed, kneel once, cover it, water it, and walk away. Seasons pass, roots take hold, and a trunk rises where his pit only deepens. People gather under the shade you made while he argues about how hard his shovel swings. That contrast is merciless. Crowds remember shade, not shovels. History records fruit, not complaints. Here is the hard truth they dodge. Busyness is a costume productivity wears when it is afraid to be measured. Meetings feel safer than milestones because milestones can fail. Research feels noble forever because no one asked for harvest dates. But you broke the spell. You made a decision that risked embarrassment, then stood still long enough for outcome to appear. Your result dragged their rituals into daylight, and daylight is unkind to masquerades. Think of a car revving in a parking lot, tires screaming, smoke twisting, the driver grinning at noise. It looks like power, it goes nowhere. Then you glide past on the open road. No smoke, no spectators, just distance increasing behind you. That is the lesson your life is teaching. Momentum is silent proof. The highway does not applaud, yet it keeps the score in miles. Now the rooms they fill feel hollow. Each sink echoes. Each deck promises next quarter, while your orchard keeps dropping fruit today. They begin sentences with almost soon, and we're exploring. But the words taste like dust against the sweetness of your outcomes. Even their allies notice the shift. Whispered loyalty turns thoughtful. Eyes track results, not rhetoric, and your results have gravity. Do not let their noise recruit your attention. Your craft is to select the essential, to prune distraction, to honor throughput over theater. You learn that fewer, truer actions multiply. You learn that a blueprint beats a calendar stuffed with motion. You learn that silence protects velocity. Carry this line as law busy isn't building. Building is choosing. Building is risking. Building is delivering a thing that changes tomorrow's landscape whether or not anyone claps today. Keep letting outcomes speak in the language that cannot be faked. Utility, relief, transformation. Keep refusing the carnival of constant announcements. The people you serve do not need your noise. They need your finished work. And if they call your path arrogant because it declines their parade, remember the real arrogance is believing that movement alone deserves a crown. You will keep moving quietly, harvesting loudly, proving that pace plus precision outlives any myth of grind. The world will rest in what you made long after the last meeting ends. And those who once loved the treadmill will step onto your road and finally learn to travel. They stood at doors that did not lock, performing power with keys that never turned. You watched them posture on platforms, declaring themselves essential, stamping papers with borrowed ink, insisting that no future moved without their nod. For a while the crowd believed it, because costumes can deceive under dim light. But light has returned. When you stepped out of their line and built your own entrance, the performance ended mid-scene. The keys rattled, the title badges dulled, and the audience turned toward the work, not the wardrobe. Imagine the old fortress on the hill. Trumpets blare, guards strut, torches flare along the wall. Below, people wait in a maze of ropes, each step measured by someone with a clipboard. Then across the valley a new path opens, no turnstiles, no barked commands, no counterfeit ceremony. You choose that path and walk. Others follow your footprints. And the first fortress discovers that authority does not vanish with a fight. It evaporates with indifference. The line dissolves, not from rioting, but from redirection. History keeps writing this lesson. Artists learn to publish without handlers. Builders find capital outside closed rooms. Communities gather in spaces gatekeepers never planned. Every generation, someone like you declines the small door and proves the landscape is larger than the hallway. The gatekeepers rage. Call it treason. Call it luck. Call it impossible. Yet their outrage is a mirror. It reflects the fear that their job was never protection, only position. Here is the thread you must keep: consent is the oxygen of counterfeit thrones. The day you stop bowing, their crown felt weightless, their chair felt high and hollow. Titles began to sound like echoes in an empty hall. Paper dissolves when it rains, and your results have brought rain. You did not ask permission to begin. You began. You did not knock. You built. You did not tear their walls down. You outgrew them until the sky itself felt like home. Now watch what happens in rooms you no longer visit. Whispers turn to questions. Questions turn to steps. People who once shushed their own courage quietly pack their tools. They carry away more than hope. They carry a blueprint with your fingerprints on its edges. A movement does not always thunder. Sometimes it arrives as a hush that empties the lobby, while the ushers keep smiling at rows already gone. They will try one more trick. They will rename the quarter you left and claim it was yours all along. They will send invitations with seals and scripts that praise your return. Do not return. Return would shrink the new horizon to fit an old hallway. Keep walking. Keep building. Keep proving that mastery is not bestowed by desks. It is forged by work that answers to reality. Let your silence stay sharp. Let results, not rhetoric, shatter the scoreboard again. Understand the shape of your victory. It is not a door kicked open. It is a city raised elsewhere. It is not a title accepted. It is a role embodied. When people need what you make, no guard can stand between them and the door you open. The map keeps widening, and the fortress on the hill keeps shrinking each time another traveler chooses your road. This is how paper crowns disintegrate, not in battle, but in rain you no longer shelter them from. They were listening for your footsteps like hunters pressing ears to the ground. Certain vibration would betray your approach. They posted lookouts on the road. They rehearsed their interceptions. They sharpened their smiles. But you did not come by the road, and you did not move with noise. You traveled like breath through a keyhole, like moonlight crossing a floor. When they finally blinked, the outcome already stood beside them, signed and sealed, indifferent to their alarms. This is the heresy against their faith in surveillance. You gave them nothing to time. You did not hint, preview, or preface. You let stillness carry the weight until it became a veil. Behind that veil, you solved what they swore you could not solve, and you finished before they finished doubting. The scoreboard they worshipped offered no numbers for this, because the scoreboard only measures what shouts. Your victory broke its bulbs in silence. Imagine a sentry studying the horizon while a tide rises under his feet. He scans the distance for threats that never come, then looks down and finds the shoreline rewritten. That is how your movement arrived. It did not compete for attention. It altered the ground. Traps rust when weather changes. Plans warp when the map itself shifts. You were the shift. Here is the psychology that eats their sleep. People calm themselves with the idea that everything important announces itself. They look for trailers, leaks, intels, and they mistake publicity for inevitability. You inverted the equation. Restraint became your instrument. Discipline turned to camouflage. By the time a whisper formed about your direction, the ink had already dried on the result. Think of a glacier. It seems motionless to the impatient, yet it moves continents grain by grain. Then one day a valley exists where no valley stood. Or think of a falcon stooping from a clear sky, silent until the last breath, impact arriving before language. That is your cadence now. Long quiet, sudden certainty. No countdown, no confetti, just fact. Their response reveals the wound. Meetings multiply, rumors stack. They search old messages for a clue they missed, as if hindsight could purchase control. They audit your silence and find no purchase order to cancel. They draft countermeasures for battles already concluded. This is why their confidence sounds thin. Paper crowns crinkle loudest when the rain returns, and the rain has returned. You also prove that secrecy is not paranoia, it is stewardship. Blueprints do not belong in windows. Some foundations require shadows until weight can settle. You honored that law. You declined the carnival of previews. You refused to trade momentum for applause. The result answered louder than 1,000 announcements ever could. Now their imagination works for you. If you did this without a ripple, what else rises under the surface? What if another valley is already carving itself beneath their fort? What if the next reveal erases the rest of the map? Fear grows in the gap between what they know and what they suspect, and your silence widens that gap on purpose. Keep it sacred. Let your calendar be a cliff, not a rumor. Let milestones appear like landmarks after fog, sudden and obvious. Speak only when the work has finished speaking. The desperate need noise to feel real. The sovereign accept reality's quiet crown. Let outcomes be your language. Inevitability, your accent. Walk like weather, strike like daylight. And when they ask where you came from, let the truth answer simply, you were there the whole time. Moving in measures they never learned to hear. They repeated that no one is irreplaceable because the sentence numbed their fear. It let them sleep and made the machine sound sovereign while you sounded small. But the day you shifted your weight, the gears they praised began to grind empty. You were not a cog. You were the axis that kept the wheel from wobbling. They missed it while you carried the load in silence. Quiet strength does not advertise. Silence was your weapon, and absence became a teacher louder than speech. Picture a tent at dusk. Flags ripple, music plays, crowds gather. Then one unseen pole is lifted, and the canvas sags like a tired lung. That pole was you, not the banner at the entrance, not the trumpet at the gate, but the spine. The moment you stepped aside, small things slipped timelines, tone, trust, and then the big things followed. Projects stalled. Voices sharpened. The room forgot its rhythm. Even their scoreboard went dim because it measured noise, not stability. And you were the stability. Here is the truth. They rehearse themselves away from systems, depend on load-bearing people. In buildings, they are called columns. In bridges, trusses, in orchestras. Conductors who never play a note yet hold time for every instrument. You held time. You caught falling weight. You absorbed weather so others could pretend it was always sunny. They said you were one of many, but many leaned on one, and that one was you. Now watch the scramble. Titles reshuffle like cards. 3 hires replace your name, and still the graph bows. They switch fonts on memos, rename committees, add more meetings, more slides, more slogans. But excellence is a result, not a rally. Blueprints beat pep talks, and you carried the blueprint where their bankroll could not. They learned that money buys bodies, not gravity. It purchases resumes, not resonance. What you brought was alignment, timing, and a steadiness they cannot requisition. Humiliation arrives publicly. Clients feel the drift. Partners sense the crack. Loyalists lower their voices. The faithful begin to whisper the sentence. The gatekeepers dread the gates where never the power someone else was. Paper crowns wrinkle loudest when it rains, and your exit brought rain. Without your calibration, their theater looks like theater again. The curtain waves, the wires show, and the crowd recognizes props where it once imagined stone. Do not argue. The architecture has chosen your side. Absence speaks with an authority presence rarely enjoys. Let their explanations multiply while results divide. Let them claim you were replaceable while proof stacks against the claim, like stones against glass. You did not need to broadcast your leaving. The echo speaks for you. Each day, a deadline breaks like surf against a weak wall. Carry this without bitterness. You were the hinge, the fulcrum, the gyroscope in crosswinds. You were the conductor whose raised hand made storms pause. Your worth was never payroll deep. It was structural. The collapse feels atmospheric, not personal. You did not punish them. Gravity returned when your hand withdrew. If they lure you with titles and noise, remember what you learned when the scoreboard shattered and the paper crown ran in the rain. Gatekeepers without gates only look tall while you agree to crouch. Walk on, build elsewhere, keep your standard intact. Irreplaceable does not mean necessary everywhere. It means decisive wherever you choose to stand. Your silence will steady new rooms. Your presence will tune new orchestras. Those who once mistook you for a cog will understand what the axis was doing the whole time, holding the world they bragged about together with quiet, load-bearing grace. They walked like monarchs, shoulders squared beneath borrowed light, convinced your horizon stayed inside their lines. They rehearsed decrees, signed papers with ceremonial pens, and mistook compliance for gravity. For a while, the room believed them, because pageantry is persuasive when the lamps are low. But appearance is not architecture. All it takes is weather. One clean storm of truth, and a paper crown dissolves in the rain. You proved it by withdrawing consent. Their power depended on your agreement to stand where they pointed, to speak when they cued, to bow at the right mark on the floor. The second you stepped outside the tape, the throne creaked. The second you refused their script, the audience looked past the stagehands and saw the pulleys. Authority that needs choreography is not authority. It is theater. You did not attack it. You simply stood in a different light and let the rain begin. Remember the anchors we planted silence as weapon, the shattered scoreboard, the mirror they cannot face. Each one returns here. Your silence made their commands echo. The scoreboard failed to measure a victory that ignored their lanes. And the mirror, the mirror now shows them a simple scene they were large only because you agreed to kneel. When you stood, their size returned to scale, and scale can be humiliating. Imagine a puppeteer tugging strings with pride while the audience gasps. Halfway through the act, the marionette lets the threads fall and walks without them. The gasps turn to laughter, then pity. Nothing on stage changed but consent, yet the spell shattered. That is how fragile their rule was. It looked like stone until touched by water. It sounded like law until silence answered it. They will try to dry the crown and tape its edges. They will rename the ritual, repaint the gates, and declare the weather temporary. Do not return to hold the umbrella. Rain is part of the remedy. It washes ink from counterfeit documents, softens cardboard thrones, and clears the air so people can see the sky beyond the set. Exposure is mercy for the honest and judgment for the proud. Here is the part that spreads. When one person refuses the script, 10 others remember they have voices. When one person steps through the fence, a path appears for many feet. You have changed the audience, not just the actors. Colleagues who once whispered now question aloud. Loyalists examine the hinges. Even the ushers glance at the exits and consider daylight. That ripple is irreversible, because questions do not fit back into envelopes once opened. Carry this clarity forward. You are not rebelling for noise, you are aligning with reality. Real power requires no costume, no applause, no scoreboard to flash its worth. Real power builds, heals, shelters, and stands when storms arrive. That is why your blueprint outlived their bankroll and your outcome outlasts their ceremony. Weathered truth is stronger than varnished lies. So keep your head uncovered and let the storm baptize the ground. Refuse the old cues. Speak only when purpose speaks through you. Walk as if the room has already learned, because many have. And when they reach again for that crown, they will feel the pulp between their fingers and finally admit what the rain has been preaching. Since your silence broke, the spell authority borrowed from appearances returns to paper. The moment consent is withdrawn. You've seen it with your own eyes. People throw money at problems, thinking dollars can silence destiny. But money is not the same as vision. Vision is breath. Vision is prophecy. Vision is the architect of reality itself. Vision is what causes the impossible to bend its knee. You can stand in a room with billionaires, but if they have no vision, their money becomes paper stacked in vaults, useless, hollow, fragile against the winds of purpose. Yet when you step into that room, Chosen one, your very presence shakes the balance. Why? Because vision has already outpaced wealth. Vision builds wealth, but wealth cannot build vision. Do you hear that the system knows it too? That's why they fear you. They have learned a painful truth: they cannot buy what you carry. They cannot purchase foresight. They cannot duplicate discernment. They cannot counterfeit divine downloads. They can attempt to mimic. They can stage performances. They can flood markets with noise, but vision cannot be imitated. Vision is alive. Vision is God-breathed. And when heaven breathes through you, no empire of money can suffocate it. Think of Joseph. His brothers sold him, but vision traveled with him into the pit. Vision walked beside him in the prison. Vision lifted him into Pharaoh's palace. He had no inheritance, no earthly wealth, no trust fund waiting for him. Yet the entire economy of Egypt survived because one chosen man had vision. And I tell you today, you walk in that same anointing. Your vision will save nations. Your vision will feed multitudes. Your vision will rewrite economies. And there is not a single currency strong enough to stop what God has shown you in the Spirit. Yes, money buys access, but vision creates worlds. Money funds campaigns, but vision turns campaigns into movements. Money can build monuments, but vision turns stone into eternal legacy. Do you understand why the wealthy tremble around you? It's because they know their influence expires when their wealth is gone. But your influence is eternal because it is rooted in vision. That's why they watch you in secret. That's why they whisper behind closed doors. That's why they circle around your every move, because you represent the one thing they cannot outthink, outspend, or outmaneuver: vision birthed in God. So do not measure yourself by what you don't see in your bank account. Measure yourself by the clarity you carry in your spirit. Because when vision aligns with divine timing, resources bow down. When vision steps forward, money becomes the servant, not the master. You won't have to chase it. It will chase you. You won't have to beg for it. It will locate you. Why? Because heaven funds its own projects. And if you are the blueprint, then abundance is already written into your story. Chosen one, your silence terrifies them, because while they are spending to stay relevant, you are seeing 10 steps ahead. While they are calculating margins, you are mapping dimensions. While they are obsessed with trends, you are already shaping eternity. Money is loud, but vision is timeless. Money can scream, but vision whispers, and the whisper shifts history. That is why you can stand with nothing and still outshine everything. That is why you can be underestimated, yet overtake. That is why you are unstoppable, because money can't outthink vision. Now breathe, let the fire of these words settle like embers, glowing in the quiet. You have walked through storms. You have seen betrayal. You have been stalked by greed and mocked